Thresa, Thresa.
And your last name?
Bussell, Bussell.
Great.
That's
Yeah.
my married name
I'm
for all these
wondering,
years.
I know we can get you the water when you need it, but I'm wondering if, yeah. And then, are the glasses, is there any glare off the glasses? Sometimes we ask people to take their glasses off, but if glare's not a problem, we're okay?
Okay.
Okay. And can you tell me about your tribal affiliation?
Well, all I know is that I haven't researched it enough. My grandmother was full-blood Mato, and she was a survivor of an Indian massacre out there. And she was taken in by a white family. He took her home after the massacre and raised her up till probably 16. I'm not sure of her age when she left. And she left there and came across up here towards the other side of the river, and somewhere in there she ran afoul of some white man that raped her. So she had a baby later on. And I guess she probably was a cook for the logging outfits up there, but I don't know too much about it. I do know that she eventually made her way down the river, she and her baby, still in the basket.
And how is that baby related to you?
That baby would be, what would it be? My mother's sister, half-sister.
Oh, okay.
You figure that one out.
Okay.
Dogs are in the background. Yeah, let's just pause for a little bit.
And
We're going to wait just for a second.
That's my brother.
Yeah, so the sound
Good.
levels out.
Yeah.
So the dogs don't.
yeah.
Okay.
Let us know, Robert, if there's anything that's going to affect the main sound, because we can pause and retake. So you might want to keep one.
They're trying to do the taping, so come on over. They got it on hold.
Just waiting until they.
No, I'm just saying. You might want to keep one of these off so we can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who's his driver?
He's got the truck.
Oh, I thought his feet were so bad I was afraid he couldn't drive.
He's better this morning.
Once we close the door.
Yeah, we'll wait for that. There we go.
They're trying to do the taping, so they're waiting for you to get over here, so you're not in the background or anything. And the dogs aren't going nuts.
Okay. Pull it out.
Which they will. Littles. This is Tim.
Hi, Tim. I'm Jennifer.
Hello.
Hi, Tim.
I've got another dog, huh?
That might squeak on us.
Yeah, we might have
Sorry.
to sit in another.
You can take this chair. I can bring it around this side.
Are you sure it's worth all this bother?
You're lucky you're in the shade, Tim. I'm getting a little warm here. I'm going to be all like, I'll have these tan shoulders, though, to go back to Eureka with.
I don't need to tan.
In half of reality, it's like saying if you want to move the table.
Yeah.
We could move it this way.
Can you tip the
Still
top,
going to be.
Gordon?
Well, I think the most important thing is that
Okay.
Teresa's in the shade and stays the same, and
Okay.
I will survive. But I will be warm by the time I'm done. But I brought some drinks, so I'll have a little something to drink when I'm done.
Okay, we're good to go.
Okay, we're gonna go.
Yep.
Teresa, can you tell me about your tribe's relationship to the river?
No, I really can't. I don't know that much about my heritage. I learned more from these kids than I... because I didn't research it at the time. When a friend of, well, Tim, they got talking and found out that about the Mato tribe, right? Wasn't it Bobby Eulerberry?
Yeah.
And so I looked into it, and they won't let me be a voting member, but I'm adopted. Because they're the Eel River. They're different. Bear River.
Could you describe where you were living during the flood? Because people won't know where we're at right now. So you were here during the
Yes,
flood, right?
uh-huh.
Could you describe what this area is like and where it is?
A couple miles up South Fork Road from the 299 in Trinity County. And it's between the road and the river. I don't know what else to tell you.
That's perfect. It's sometimes like when people don't know where we're talking, people say, well, I was here during the flood. And it's like if people don't know
Right.
where there is, then it creates a little problem.
Voice is not going to be in the
There
Yeah,
is,
and my voice is going to be taken out, so you won't hear me asking you the question.
oh,
So it'll be just your voice
and you can never keep
answering.
looking at you too.
And then, and also when you're answering the questions, and it's tempting to look at these guys too, but if you can look at me, because when your eyes move back
Oh.
and forth, it just looks a little strange when people are watching it. It just looks a little disturbing. Like, what's she looking at?
uh-huh.
How old were you during the flood?
Oh, goodness. I
It
don't
was
pay
50
much,
years ago.
pay much attention to age. So I was born in 29, so you do the figuring. I had a,
35?
sounds good,
Okay.
right in there.
Could I have you say that I was 35 during the 1964 flood?
Okay, we'll do that. I was 35 during the 64 flood, and my children were caught unawares when this happened. Tim was my oldest one, was down at the ranch with his grandparents. And when I finally got down the road to find out what was going on, they were clearing out a culvert there at Willow Creek so it wouldn't flood the town. And I said, where's my son? Here's his uncle and his father both over there working to save the town. And, well, he'll be all right. And I had the Jeep, and he said, go over and get him then. And I said, drive through that water. Oh, you can do it. I mean, my husband thought I could do anything that he didn't want to do, so at least that's how I interpreted it. So I drove through and went over and found Tim over there and showed me how high the water had been up there. And he wasn't afraid. He was just there, wondering where they were.
How old was Tim?
Probably 12, I think. Somewhere right around close there, 11 or 12.
13.
13.
Or 14? Yeah, 13 or 14, yeah.
Anyway, so he got in the Jeep with me and went back. And then later on, Lucille, my neighbor up here, Lucille Ammon, and I and a couple of the kids went down and drove as far as we could and walked across. Caught a ride over there at the ranch, and rifles was just deep freeze because it had been broken into and the stuff was no electricity. It was going to go anyway, so we took what we could up here. So we enjoyed his cheese.
Did you do a lot of canning yourself and preserving of food so that you had every year kind of a little something laid by?
Oh yeah.
What sorts of things did you can?
I don't can anything if I can help it. Nita knows that. But we had tomatoes and we had fruit.
How did you know, like you had been, everybody in Humboldt County and Del Norte and Trinity County have been through many rainstorms. How did you know that this one was going to be different?
I didn't. Never occurred to us. We weren't prepared for it at all. I mean, with the idea of stocking up and being the roads going out or anything being that bad, we just let it happen without any preparation. My sister-in-law and my mother-in-law were across the river where they lived, and were both thoroughly disgusted because they had to cook for those people over there because the other people in the housing shopped every day for their bread and their milk and whatever. They didn't have anything laid by, and they didn't know how to cope. So they made bread and fed those people. I mean, you do whether you like it or not because you're so helpless.
You talked about that you had some people here because you were the only ones with hot water. Why did you have hot water and nobody else had hot water?
Because we had a gasoline heater on it. The rest of them were all electricity. And there was no electricity, so obviously, so everybody, well, Les, of course, came down after work when he brought Ozzy down off the hill. So he could take a shower, and my neighbors over there, Tommy and Helen, they could come over and take a shower. And they were all sitting in our living room visiting one night, and we heard this horrible crash, and they went to open the door and see what fell. Couldn't open the door. We had to go around the other side. A tree limb off of this big walnut had fallen down beside the house and taken the roof of the porch off. So.
Was that during the time when it was raining a lot and flooding, or was that snow?
Right after the initial flood. About a couple of days probably, I'm not sure.
And was it snowing by that time?
Oh yeah, that wet heavy snow. But that was more a deterrent than a help, because it was so heavy and wet. It was so warm that it was, you know, it wasn't like good fluffy snow that you could make snowmen out of. It was just a mess.
I heard people talk about the weather up here during the flood, during the time that big storm came through with all that rain, and they said they were wearing short sleeve shirts that it was so warm.
I wasn't, but I can believe they were. Yeah. Well, that's why the flood happened. We had this heavy snowpack in the hills, which would have been great normally, but then we had this warm tropic rain, and so it all came down at once.
And then it snowed again afterwards, and you had that wet snow.
Yeah, and it was still warm enough that it was not good cold snow.
Do friends and family tell you stories about the flood, and do you have any other, tell me about because I remember you saying you kept running out to see what happened whenever you heard the sound.
Oh, it was the rocks rolling across the river down there. At night, you never got any sleep if you wanted to listen to those roll.
Is it still?
The wind.
Okay, I'm going to pull it around the other side because maybe that'll be better. I have a little bit of a wind issue with the microphone, so I'm going to see if I can pull it around your other side.
So tell them about the mountain sliding in, both two places across here and then up there blocking the river up here on the South Fork.
Yeah, we found that.
Wait till we get you hooked up.
No, I know, I don't want my voice in there. I'm I'm coaching her to tell.
No, yeah, I know. Same way with me. My voice will be out of there. Let's see if this is, move it down just a little further.
Well, it's pretty hard to remember everything in any kind of order.
I just dropped the little clip down into your shirt there. Let's see if we can stop it before it goes any further. I'm going to grab that. Got it. It's a good thing we don't have the guys doing this part, huh? That would have been a little awkward.
They probably would have dropped it in the first place.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Thanks. They're not as clumsy as me. Thanks. Oops. See, I did it again. Oh. I don't know why it's not staying in there. Let's see if I can do this without getting you too messed up. Yeah, we'll see. Are you still having wind noises? Because if you don't, it's so far so good.
Like I said, I can't tell this in order. It's just when things pop into my head.
Fine.
Like Anita's talking about, farther up South Fork, you go up this road and follow it up to almost the end. You can see across the river where the whole draw came down, and we figured it plugged the river up for several minutes. And down here, before you get to Willow Creek, the whole thing came across. You could look across the river and see the white line from the highway sitting on the other side of the river. So it had plugged the river for a short time. So it was a horrendous movement of the earth. Over here where Anita lives, where her house is, the front yard was a lot bigger than it is now. The whole face peeled off and went into the river.
I heard a lot of stories of that when we talked to people in Klamath. They talked about having family upriver, on the Klamath that had property where they had their gardens and their
Right.
orchards and everything, and they lost everything.
Yes.
They lost not just that
No,
year's crop,
no,
they lost
no.
the land.
No, acres. I know up here at Big French Creek, I went over there. It's not, that big wide swath isn't there anymore. It disappeared during that storm.
How did people in the community react? Tell me about your newsletter.
Oh, well, Lucille was such a nervous wreck. Not scared, just edgy. Just jumping up and down. You know, anyway, I found something for her to keep her occupied, and that's when I decided we'd do this newsletter. So it was our rumor and whatever. We talked to anybody we could talk to and made this article out of it. And like I say, none of those survived because we didn't think of them as being something to keep. But we told about who was there that day and who came in and who whatever. And it kept her busy, and the kids were busy throwing their little voice in they were the reporters, her older girl. And it wasn't anything, like I said, it was just to keep her occupied. It wasn't any real news because we all knew what was going on that were here.
Did people who lived in your community kind of get together every now and then to talk about what needed to be done? And
there wasn't any community per se that we were involved in. You notice when you come up here, we're the only place up here. Us and our neighbors just beyond us.
so just you two.
And then there was Tommy and Helen over the hill. And some farther up South Fork, but they were cut off up there. And Ozzy and Les primarily had the Caterpillar up there on the hill and kept the road open so they could get to Weaverville and when the milk wagon came down, they towed him over the hill so he could go on down to Willow Creek and take the groceries in there. And Roger Adrian was the driver. And he took care of all that. He was good. Being the age we were and the funniness of it and the casualness of it, their pay was a bottle of booze every once in a while when he came over. And I said, just once, could you bring some mix? But no. Don't waste time with something like that when they could bring booze.
Don't want to dilute it.
Exactly.
Jen, I wonder if she wants to take a water break.
Yeah, do you want to take a water break? Do you want to have a little water break?
Mine's too much focusing on her
Pardon?
right arm. That's too bright.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, I might want to
Yeah, I had
crank in a little
something a couple of years ago. They didn't call it a stroke. He called it an incident. And ever since then, I've had trouble. So I have my water there because I get dry mouth.
Get thirsty. Do we want to do something about that? Are you getting warm?
No, I'm fine.
You've got the sun on you there. Is that looking?
If we moved her to her left.
Or we might be able to move the umbrella.
I'm just wondering. I'm just going to check the light here. I mean, we could move her over here a little bit.
Yeah.
That would be okay for
That
you.
would be better.
Okay.
She needs to stand up.
Yeah. If I can get up. Oh.
No.
Mm.
Because otherwise you'd have to receive.
That's true.
I feel so stupid being so crippled up at my age. My older sister gets around better than I do, and she'll be 96 in August.
96? Well, you've got some good genes going on with your family. All of you guys got good genes. You got shorts? No jeans, just shorts?
Oh, God, a little South Fork humor.
Have a drink and we'll put that down.
And he worked on houses and all that. And the guy went up to him. This guy says, "Hey, I heard you're a carpenter." And well, that wasn't his name, so that's what he thought about. He says, "No, I'm a George."
I'm a George.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah. That better be it.
on this one.
What's that?
This one looks a little.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well, it's better than it was.
Yeah. Okay, keep it?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All the technicalities, huh?
So one of the things that we've noticed when we do interviews about this film is so many of the people in Humboldt, Del Norte, and Trinity counties were people who worked with their hands. They were farmers and fishermen and ranchers and just hardworking people. And we think that it seemed like they were better able to solve the problems that the flood brought than people in the city might be able to.
I fully agree with that. The ones that I talked about down there at Rockland Housing that my sister-in-law had to feed were not from here. They came in for the logging. They came in from backwoods, Wisconsin or wherever. Came down, we called them Oregon Improved Okies because they came down from Oregon. But they were pathetic when it came to an emergency. At least that's how we saw it.
How did people here locally who were used to this sort of thing, how did they react when the flood happened? What sorts of things did they do?
Just like we did. They just did whatever they had to put a meal on the table and warmth in the house.
And how about clearing the roads, too?
The loggers got in and put the road back in down there at by the Willow Creek. The state said, well, it'd be several months before we'd have a road in here connection, and the loggers put it in a couple of weeks. If it was that, I'm not sure. I went out with Ozzy on the first truck out because he had the tow truck and he was towing a car to town. It was like driving on jelly. I mean, it just kind of rolled behind you as you went along. But it held, and it got the traffic through that needed to go through. The loggers couldn't haul their logs out yet, but they got the road in. Just, you know, I don't know what else to tell you. They just did it.
Tell me about driving across the river, because I think I would be just like you. I'd be looking at that river, and I'd be saying, I'm not driving my car across the river. You should have seen me coming in here because we took a wrong turn, and I'm like, I don't know about this. We're going over these ruts, and I'm like, I don't think this car is built for this.
No, it was my Jeep, and I knew that it was, the water was running in the creek deep enough, it'd be running up through the Jeep, and that's why I didn't want to drive it, but I drove through the rocks. It wasn't getting onto my feet, it wasn't quite that deep. But you do what you have to do when I needed to get over there to get Tim. So I did. But I was worried about them, and they're cleaning in that big culvert because they're working down here on the farm. I said, you know what, when it breaks through, you're going to be the ones down here getting washed away. But they managed, luckily. They were out of there when it broke through.
Anita, what other questions should I ask?
The Willow Creek Bridge washed out. The town of Willow Creek washed down. We were up here by then.
Do you remember the town of Willow Creek washing out?
Mount Slipmore.
Oh, was that then? I thought it was earlier.
Nope, that was then.
Oh,
It was our Christmas from the variety store.
yeah.
So
Okay, yeah, the town behind Willow Creek, the mountain behind Willow Creek came down on the store and the buildings that were there. Just squished them. And when they were, the guys got their, you know, were down there to clean out that mess and get it back into something. They were, one of my neighbors up here parked his car and was walking across because they couldn't drive to Willow Creek up there. There was a break in the road. And he got about halfway across and he said something, said, go back and move your car. So he did. He went back and moved the car about 200 feet back down the road. And when he came off shift, come back up the next day to get his car, where it had been wasn't. It had gone into the river. So something was, he had his little guardian angel on his shoulder.
So tell me about Christmas that year. What was it like? Because it was this big disaster right in the middle of what, you know.
It's fun.
What'd you do?
Nothing spectacular.
Grandma Ammon. Ruth.
You're going to have to tell. I don't remember anything about Grandma Emma.
You're trying to prime her a little bit, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know. The kids entertained themselves. They came up with stuff, and I know that I had picked up a large sweatshirt for my brother-in-law. He's the only one I had at that point. Well, he went to light our little camp stove, the little 2-burner stove, the little propane. And instead of it lighting like it should, it had stuff in that wasn't clean gas, and it flamed up. Big flame, and burnt the whole sleeve off his new shirt. It was some interesting language. But, you know, I mean, they didn't expect anything. The kids weren't, what was. Christmas will be later, because we couldn't have gotten to town to get all the things we wanted. So they weren't unhappy. They had the neighbor kids, and they all went out and played and got wet in the snow and thought it was great. And didn't have school until the end of January, so unless the kids have different memories than I do, I didn't see them being any particularly deprived of their Christmas.
Okay.
So Jen, we're either going to wrap up or chase the shade again. 'Cause
Okay, we will wrap up, and unless there's anything else that you want to share with us, I think we might have what we need so far. Does that sound good?
Yeah, because I don't know when the Willow Creek Bridge went out down there.
That might be the next series of questions. Willow Creek Bridge. Okay.
I do know that one of the young fellows filming that, he's over there on the bridge and filming the water coming down, and somebody yelled at him, "You better get off of there." He said it was shaking pretty badly, so he ran and he got off. But it went out right after that. I mean, people, I guess, that live up here like to live dangerously. I don't know.
I think so. I think we heard some of the stories of the guys who were doing some of that filming, and it sounded like they were waiting to the very last second. On a lot of times they were saying like the dike was washing away and they're backing up
Right.
as the dike's washing away in front of them. So it's
Well, that's what I said, like the loggers, when they put that road in, it wasn't. And I know when they put fixed the temporary Bailey Bridge up there at Pony Creek, my brother-in-law was working with them up there clearing timber so it wouldn't slide down into the road. And the state highwayman said, "Well, it's finished. You're going to go across, test it out." And neither one of them had the nerve to even walk across it. And Marsh said, "Oh my God," he outweighed him by 200 pounds, I think. So he ran across and back. He said if he could make it, they surely could. I mean, you got to have a sense of humor. What else is going to keep you going?